Hi, Falyn. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Sherry. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, I'm so excited you're here. I love what we're about to get into, but first, I want to honor you for sharing your story with me and really sharing your story with the world because it really seems to me that every time I come across a coach or a professional who truly loves and has that deep desire to serve and to help others, it's oftentimes because they've gone through their own turbulence, their own emotional traumas, and have had that opportunity to really overcome and rise. And it's through that pain and transforming that pain into passion and into purpose is how we can unleash that limitless potential inside us to truly serve and support others. So thank you so much for being here and for wanting to share your story with us today.
Thank you so much. I am just astounded by the language. You speak so beautifully.
Well, I think it always is, that energy that kind of attracts that like. And so I feel like because you're here, women, we speak the same language. And so I'm excited to get this going. So tell me a little bit about you. I know that you help women really look into themselves and overcome certain limiting beliefs or blocks that they have. And I know you do this in such a beautiful way. You are a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And clearly this comes from your story. And so maybe we can start off today by you just sharing your story a little bit and what brought you to this place to wanting to help others as well.
Yes, thank you for that. So when I was 26, I was actually experiencing a lot of physical health symptoms, and it seemed to continue to compound. Like one would come up and then it would be three and then five. And it came to a point where I felt like I needed to reach out for some help. So some of the symptoms were hair loss, some body odor, chronic fatigue, muscle soreness, poor sleep issues, bloating, emotional eating. So it kind of, the list goes on. And so I had reached out to my family physician as well as gynecologist, and I really didn't receive the support that I was looking for. So thankfully, I had a mutual friend that was going through some functional lab testing. And at this point, I don't really know a thing about holistic health, integrative health, nothing. I have no language around it. And I was interested to hear more about these tests. So tests like the food sensitivity, a stool test, a hormone test. And I'm like, I think I need to do this. So I transitioned and went through that testing and actually followed a protocol to heal. What was so interesting on this test is that I felt validated for my symptoms. Mm-hmm. It was like, I wasn't crazy. It's not because some of the physician had said, you look great.
Great.
I don't really see like what the problem here. The basic blood panel looked fine. So again, I didn't feel fine. So I wanted to seek answers. And here they were on these functional lab tests. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have some direction here.
Right.
So fast forward going through some lifestyle changes to live more of an integrative, holistic life, getting more rest, managing some of my stress, because certainly that's kind of why all of this transpired, because I wasn't able to handle all of these stressors. And then I was like, I think I should become a practitioner with this certification. So I went through the certification, and that is how I became an FDNP. So kind of short for the functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And since then, I really delved into more things. So it's kind of like when we heal these initial symptoms, it's symptoms, which are the last thing to kind of come up for us. So when we heal these, it's kind of like, oh, what more is there? And so then some emotional things and trauma was able to kind of come to the surface for me to look at, and then add more tools to learn how to really regulate my nervous system. And yeah, that's a little bit about the last couple of years.
Wow, that's intense. And it's so interesting. And this is not to ever knock any doctors down at all, because I've had surgery on my back twice. And because of allopathic medicine, I've actually been able to recover from many traumatic physical experiences that I've gone through. But it always just strikes me as super curious when we kind of stop searching. And I think before we started recording, I was asking you, Falyn, like, what are your superpowers? And you said curiosity, right? And so when we harness that level of curiosity and then we align it with that intuition that the body has, and start to really question whether or not we're feeling okay, whether or not the information that we've received from our doctor is actually solving our problems, we can start to search for more answers. And it's so interesting because all of the different things that you just shared, whether that's menstrual irregularities, sleep issues, or fatigue, or any of these things, even the bloating, oftentimes they're looked at as though they were separate things, but it seems like you kind of brought them all together. And I love that you said that these are the side effects, these are the symptoms of an underlying thing that's really happening. And what's important about that is that if we continue to harness that sense of curiosity and we decide that this doesn't feel right for us and there has to be solutions out there, we'll continue to find it and then come across this beautiful profession that oftentimes many of us don't even know exists or know that that type of support is even there for us.
Yeah, firstly, I have to just say, when you mentioned part of your story, I went on your YouTube prior to having this conversation. I was like, oh my gosh, like this woman is like the real deal, pushing through all of these courageous paths. And so I commend you for all of your curiosity to like just continue to up-level your life. But I completely agree. You know, sometimes it's like the medical system is the medical system and they can't help what they're taught while they're in med school.
Right.
And they do, I think most of them mean well because they got into the profession to help others. If you have a broken arm, if you have a major accident, oh my gosh, yes, go to the hospital. But for things to optimize your health, see a functional health practitioner, see someone that actually looks at the entire body because it is all so connected. It's pretty profound by just looking at, for example, if you have some thyroid concerns, if your TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone, if it was off the chart or maybe it's normal and you do a full thyroid panel, are you expressing yourself? Like, do you feel like you're actually voicing things in your life? Because those two are so intricately connected. Sorry, that term is challenging right now.
Intricately connected. That's like a tongue twister.
It is. But yeah, it's having us be our own health detective, checking in with self, because I think society really disconnects us from ourselves. We have so many distractions going on, and it just continues to pull us into different directions, and that shakes up our nervous system, which then, enhances mineral loss, right, promoting disease. It's just this constant spiral. So I have found to just sit down in stillness, or at least at some point in the day. That's a great place to even start to build a deeper connection with yourself, or just think, so you can think about what you're thinking about.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's super interesting because we have these certain markers for health, right? We go see a doctor and we have these specific markers that determines whether or not we are healthy. And sometimes that's blood tests. And by the way, doctors are amazing at what they do. And the problem I think that we have, and we need to take responsibility for this, is that we put all the load and sense of responsibility on them and just them. You see your doctor for advice about nutrition. You see your doctor for advice about exercise and which exercises you should or should not do. You see your doctor for all of these other things. And the truth is there are so many other professionals that are experts in their fields that can help complement the advice that the doctor shares. And I say this because my parents were doctors and my brother's a doctor and I was expected to be a doctor. And I come from like this line of doctors, Falyn, and I have to say this because if they're listening today, I just want to say that I honor and respect them so much and so grateful for them and grateful for my care that I've always received from every type of allopathic doctor. However, I also want to point out that, again, health is not just this marker that we see when we do go to a doctor or we do have blood tests done, but instead it really is harnessing that balanced relationship, I believe, with the body and the relationship with others and then the relationship with ourself. And if we're able to tap into that, if we have that intuitive capacity to really lovingly look at ourselves, look at our body and decide that everything that we want to do for our body comes from a place of joy, of love, of really just absolute care instead of this this forced expectation and putting so much pressure on ourselves to look a certain way or to do certain things or to be a certain way because we're constantly comparing ourselves to others, and also making sure that our relationships are healthy, the environment that we spend our time the most in is healthy and serving to us, and then coming to that place of stillness where you are connecting with yourself. And we are not our physical body, right? I'm not Sherry the coach. I'm consciousness living in Sherry's body with curly hair, and right. And that's really who we are. And we operate from this place. And yet throughout our life, we're constantly assigning these labels. We're a daughter, we're a mother, we're a coach, we're all these other things. We're all the things that happen to us. We're all the experiences and the traumas that happen to us in our life. And we operate from this place. And that's where we start to get lost, because when we reconnect truly to what health is that balance between all those things. If I'm honoring my body and yet my relationships are toxic for me, that's not really honoring my health. Or I don't have an opportunity to sit with myself and to meditate and to really step into consciousness and gratitude, then I also don't have that complete balance of health. And so I love what you say, because truly this is where it's at. And we are not just the physical body. We are the emotions that we carry. We are all the traumas that have happened to us and our experiences. And it's so clear that after you started to point yourself in the right direction and start to really look at the layers, you found that under the layers of all of the symptoms that you were resolving, there was this deeper level of trauma that I would love for you to expand a little bit on.
Yeah, literally loved everything that you just said. Yes, preach. But yes, so underneath a lot of our physical symptoms lies these emotional symptoms. And that can be labeled in a way as trauma. And I know a lot of people think of trauma as a car accident or, someone has gotten beaten or something like that. But trauma can be so unconscious to the point where it's how our mom held us as a child. If she didn't hold us on her hip for long enough, it's like there could be some trauma, some neurological development issues there. Or if we didn't have enough tummy time, if we were not actually on our stomach as a child enough, we could have some kind of safety concerns. So it's so much more to it. Like, trauma is such a broad term. And I think for me personally, as I healed the symptoms, it's like my nervous system had the capacity to open this up for me to look at. Otherwise, I felt like I probably couldn't have handled it. It's like the universe gives us things that they know, that the universe knows that we can handle this now. So it was a circumstance when I was little, and what came up was an image, and an image when I was a child. And it was considered I would consider it like an inappropriate sexual experience. And the image was just so profound to me when I was reading a book. It was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it was so interesting. I forget what page I was on, but literally this image flashed in my mind. And I was so excited because I was like, oh my gosh, because me being this curious person, I'm like, that's interesting. So I want to say probably the few days afterwards, it's like, wow, yeah, I feel a little bit of emotion coming up here. So it's kind of like I didn't even have this jolt of emotion. It was just like this flash. And I want to say, like, over the next couple of years, well, actually the next year, we'll say, I didn't have any tools in my toolbox to really know where to go, what to do. I didn't really know about therapists, or I did, but I had this perception that I don't want to go there. I don't need help. And I ended up just having these bouts of emotion. So going through my timeline of this experience to now and connecting some of the dots, I'm like, oh my goodness, this really fed into the different romantic partners I chose, the abandonment of myself constantly to please a romantic partner, just not valuing self and what I bring. So as I got into seeking some help, I did a little bit of EMDR. I went to a talk therapist, and then I was introduced to somatic experiencing. And all of those are now tools and experiences in my toolbox that I can support others if I feel like that could be a good fit. Some of the clients that I work with now, we do somatic exercises together because I want you to be able to really work with your nervous system. It's kind of like this reparenting process, because when I would get upset, I would be on the phone, I'd be calling somebody else because I couldn't handle it on my own, couldn't sit with myself. Yeah. So yeah, going through just little by little, it's just like those baby steps in the right direction of eventually it becomes ingrained in you, like, oh, I think I should actually do a type of, containment right now. I'm feeling a little bit anxiety come up. So things like that, it's like you're having this conversation with yourself of what do I need now? Like I'm here, how can I support you? And this is an ever evolving process. I am not perfect. It's just, it's continuously saying like whatever comes up. It's like, okay, maybe this exercise works this time and maybe it doesn't the next time. Maybe the emotion needs to come out through anger, screaming in a pillow. Maybe it needs to be danced out. Maybe it needs to be just cried out. So it's just these emotions that come up in all of us. And sometimes we cannot explain. Sometimes maybe we can, but it doesn't really matter. It's just this energy that needs to shift, because we're not the emotion. It's just this experience, and sometimes we can get sucked in. And so having these tools in your toolbox allows some space for you to see that's not me. This is just a temporary thing that's trying to flow out.
Oh my God, so powerful, so powerful. I love everything that you said. And Falyn, my approach always to helping my clients really reach their health goals or even their weight goals starts exactly where you just described. Because when we're focused on the outcome, which is I need to do this exercise to look like this, or I need to stop eating this to look like that, and that's what we're hyper focused on, what we end up doing is creating this transactional behavior where I'm going to go to the gym because I want these results, or I'm going to stop eating this because I want to lose weight. And truly coming into that programming, which is identity, which is everything that you just shared, right? Understanding who you are has to come from a level of awareness of the subconscious mind. And it's so interesting because we oftentimes don't realize that we have these traumas that we've hidden, that we've done a really, really great job of just really suppressing and pushing down for so many years. And yet we still continue to behave in a way that resulted from that particular trauma. And once we realize this, once we realize that we can rewire the mind, that we understand that the mind is a program and we can change the habit of being ourselves simply by knowing first that that habit exists and realizing that habit gives that particular outcome, then we can transform from that place. And I have this program called Make Peace with Food, where I help women overcome binge eating, emotional eating, stress eating. And it's not the dieting and it's not the focusing on the exercise or the food that creates the solution, but it's really tapping into that subconscious place where you understand where your behaviors come from. Because first it's a thought, and then it's an emotion, and then it's an action. And then when the actions are repeated so many times, it becomes a habit, and then that is your behavior. And ultimately it's who you are. But if you don't understand where those thoughts come from, which oftentimes are painful experiences from the past because we've had these traumatic events that we've done our best to try to forget about or to try to make sense of, and especially if we were super young at that time, if we were a child and with that child's mind trying to understand some of the things that happened to us, we really find ourselves unable to connect with what it is that we want to create. And so that is that relationship with self, is really understanding that unconscious mind. And I think you had mentioned earlier that when you were younger, I think maybe at the age of 14, that's when you started struggling a little bit with maybe body image and with food in general. And I'm curious if that event, that traumatic event that you experienced, that that thought, that memory that came up for you was maybe perhaps related in some way to that part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought that up. It is completely related and then some, you know. I would say that the body image, certainly part of it came from the family dynamic. You know, my mom and my grandma kind of criticizing themselves of like I'm fat, like I can't lose this weight, or you know, and we're absorbing that as kids, and it's just no fault of their own. My goodness, love them, but it's like this program of I'm not enough, or I am unworthy, or I have to look like this magazine cover, and it's just not real. Like this whole thing is just not real, but we meld this into who we are. And that's like, again, our program kind of spinning and turning. And I think so unconsciously, I had no awareness of it, but I would emotionally eat. It was a guess of around 14. I'm not even sure when it had started, but it would really be sweets. I mean, my goodness, it'd be Pop-Tarts, it'd be M&Ms, whatever. And I would actually hide it because it was that coping mechanism. It's like that numbing, you know, numbing the emotion or the pain, whatever it was.
Right.
And I guarantee a lot of it certainly went back to that experience, but also there's so many minor, probably hundreds and thousands of these minor traumas that we'll never know, we'll never get to uncover. And that's certainly okay. But just becoming aware of this habit or this feeling or this pull to go get the pack of Pop-Tarts or whatever it is, just like stopping and be like, wait, why am I doing that?
Yes.
Yeah. And having that awareness gives you the capacity to better choose. It's okay if you choose that again, but over and over, and you might start feeling bad. Because I noticed, and you probably noticed yourself, like when you start eating well and getting some movement in, and then you fall back into eating something not so good, it's like your system is impacted that much more intensely because it's like that bad. You know, when you create some space and have a healthier lifestyle, then you dip into the unhealthiness. Right. It's like, oh my gosh, did I actually feel like that all the time? So it's just about that awareness again. The awareness of, no, I don't want to feel that way. I want to have the courage. Like I do own the courage to look at that.
Right. Oh, so good. So good. And I love what you said about how this level of work has to be constant and it has to be all the time. And I think you said I'm no expert by any means. And I don't think any of us can ever be experts, right? Unless, I mean, we can look at some of the gurus and right, maybe follow the Buddha and then really look at that level of expertise. However, for all of us, we have to realize that this is a practice that has to be done daily. And so it's like brushing our teeth or just mowing the lawn or whatever that is, that really is the upkeep. And it's through that upkeep that we can continue to work on ourselves. And we are dynamic beings. We're not the static energy or life force that's just here and we're constantly experiencing things daily. And we oftentimes avoid these emotions because they're so painful. And so when it comes to something like emotional eating, for example, we have a particular emotion. Oftentimes we don't know what to do with it because either we're taught not to sit in it, don't cry, suck it up, be tough, right? Get over it. Or we've just labeled that as this massive trauma, this massive pain point that we want to avoid because it brings back that experience. But the thing is learning to sit in it and learning, like you mentioned earlier, that I'm observing the emotion. I'm not the emotion. I'm just observing the emotion. I'm experiencing the emotion. That part of me, the body, is experiencing the emotion, but it's not really connected to who I am. And distancing myself from it and allowing myself to experience it, then I know that when I do experience this, I don't need to turn to the ice cream to relieve that emotion. I can actually turn to myself. And it's hard and absolutely not going to be perfect the first time. And I always say that degree towards progress, no matter how small it is better than doing absolutely nothing and standing right in the same place. And so as you get more comfortable with that discomfort of the emotion, you get better and better and better at it. And then your tendency to reach for that ice cream gets less and less and less. And that is the progress. It's not doing the practice once, then all of a sudden you're kicking the ice cream habit and you're no longer connecting that emotion with wanting ice cream, but instead it's realizing that you're doing it less often and less often until eventually you're feeling more in control over that. And so again, this work can only be done when we come to that level of the subconscious mind where we're creating awareness of, well, why am I reaching for that? What was the thought? Like, what was the emotion that came up? How does that make me feel afterwards? And then stepping back and interrupting the pattern, giving ourselves full permission that if we still feel that way, even when we allow ourselves to sit in the emotion and we still want that ice cream, we can still have it. But we allow ourselves to sit in it and continue to practice until we master it. And eventually it just becomes a part of that, the regular discomfort that we feel more comfortable to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I remember around 25 or 26 when I had a very busy lifestyle. And I think in part it was because I didn't want to slow down so then I wouldn't feel,
Right.
But with the emotional eating coming in again, and I'm not even sure it actually went away, probably periods of time, but I was noticing I was trying to get more energy because I was like, I need to keep going. I need to study for this graduate class and I'm not going to go to sleep. Let's have some more M&Ms, because it's that quick energy. We want that stimulation instead of actually taking a 20-minute break.
Right.
And so that could be part of the reason too. Like certainly there's emotion tied into that, but it could be like, maybe you just need to take a little nap.
Right. Oh, so good. I love this. I love this. I love your sense of calm. And it's so interesting because I have to tell you, like, just as a side note, I decided that 2023 was going to be my year of calm. And so I feel like just being around your energy, I already feel more calm. Generally I'm pretty hyper and
Yeah.
but I just feel this gorgeous just leveling out of just peace. And this is exactly how I want to step into all of my things. And it's interesting what you're saying about energy because even that overstimulation of energy becomes very unhealthy for us. And I'll tell you from my experience last year, I ended last year with a burnout. It was probably one of the most epic years ever. I've accomplished so much last year. And then because I was doing so much and I was overly exerting my energy and giving my energy without that opportunity to sit and recover, I ended up burning out. And so I got physically ill, I was mentally ill, I was emotionally ill. And I was spending like hours and hours in bed all day. I was sleeping 12 hours every night and waking up to just take my kids to school. I'd come back home and I would need a little nap. Like imagine, I had my coffee, I brought my kids to school, but I still needed my nap. And it's that reminder that we have to manage our energy. And so what you're sharing right now is so incredibly important. Just asking yourself, where do I get my source of energy? Is it from over serving people? Is it from emptying my cup all the time? Or is it from fake sources of energy coming from food or from alcohol or from shopping? Like, where is that coming from? Because our true energy is from within. And I don't believe that it is infinite. It can be if we're connected to source, if we give ourselves that moment. But what we can actually hold in our container is very finite. And we have to guard this. And I always like to look at my week in terms of energy, not in terms of time, because time is just something we've created. Time and space is just something that we've decided exists in a three-dimensional world. But what really exists is our energy. And so every day I just kind of ask myself, does this serve me? Am I being within my own integrity of how I'm managing my energy? Am I giving myself an opportunity to recharge? Am I allowing things to rob me of my energy? And through that conversation of just the awareness of my energy, I make very, very different decisions than I did last year.
I love that. I think you and I have a similar story of the burnout last year.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So I had the goal of paying off the rest of my debt. And I was actually still working in the corporate life. So I was in the insurance industry working full time as well as working remotely for another job, like additional 30, sometimes 35 hours. So it was like 2 full-time jobs. But I was like, I'm getting this debt paid off. We're doing it. And, looking back, I wouldn't change the decision.
Right.
But it's like, okay, I chose this debt over health because I didn't have the capacity to really even train or weight lift. It was really just walking.
Right.
And I chose that, which was fine. Great lesson and experience for me to say, like, no, I probably wouldn't do that again. And I left go of both of those jobs in August, and really August all the way from the rest of the year, I was kind of taking it easy because, my throat was hurting. It was very closed because I wasn't expressing and upholding the boundaries that I needed for my own health. And it gave me some time to really, and I still did some like odds and end jobs here, but no way was there a structure. Got a lot of sleep. And really this year, like 2023, I was like, okay, we're ready. It's kind of like that caterpillar in the rest of 2022. And then this 2023, it's like, okay, we're actually going to expand. We're going to move forward again. Yeah.
So interesting. So interesting you use that analogy because the whole time I was recovering, I just saw myself as this cocooned caterpillar, and I was eventually going to emerge into this butterfly where I was just myself. And it was like this reinvention of Sherry. Sherry 2023 has freaking boundaries, and this is going to be very, very different. And the boundaries are really set for myself because it was my second center actually that was the issue. So I had massive stomach problems, and that was okay, relationship with self, relationship with my environment, relationship with others. Like there's something going on there and I need to address this. And then of course add on the expectations and the limiting beliefs and the not enoughness and really forcing things that were outside my control that brought me to this place. And it's so interesting. And I think the greatest takeaway from this beautiful conversation today, Falyn, is that we are not just the physical body. And you know deep down inside when there's something off, when it's not aligning, when you're not finding the answers and you're still not feeling well. And as you continue to dig deeper and deeper, connect the emotions and connect the thoughts and connect that part of you, the subconscious part that is programmed to make you behave that way and to start to manifest physically in the body. Because it's not an accident that the hormones are off and their stomach issues and the menstruation is off. When the major systems like this are off, there's something happening in the nervous system. And you brought that up a few times. You kept talking about resetting the nervous system. And so I feel that maybe some people listening to this today aren't super clear as to what that means. So maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that can make us feel, I'll just label a term here, anxious. When we feel anxious, we feel like our nervous system, to kind of like make that connection here, our nervous system is like up. We're not feeling like ourselves. And it could be from the computer screen. It could be from artificial lights. I mean, we can have the stimulation from a coworker. So anything that's exciting us or overstimulating us can shake up our nervous system. Even processed foods, the chemicals in foods can mess with our neurotransmitters. And all of this, it's just kind of like the environment we live in, the air we're breathing, the water we're drinking, it kind of throws us off balance. So to establish more of an awareness when we are off balance, it's like, okay, let's check in with our nervous system. Do we feel safe in this environment, in this work cubicle with our romantic partner? Do we feel safe, or is there something that we need to navigate? So when we're kind of feeling up and we're feeling anxious, there are ways to kind of come back down and to be present again. Because a lot of times it's like we're thinking already in the future where like this is going to happen because it happened 10 years ago, or, I'm worried, I'm fearful. And like I said, maybe I could even go through one exercise.
That'd be amazing. Oh my goodness. So generous.
So, one way to very easily stimulate your vagus nerve, which our nervous system is very much connected to the vagus nerve. It's really, when we stimulate that, we can be able to shift into more of a rest and digest, which is considered the parasympathetic autonomic nervous system. So for example, if you are, we probably can't do this in the chair. Actually, no, we'll share. I'll do two. So if we're feeling like life is just a lot right now, and we kind of want to create some space and push it away. We're literally going to have our hands up to our chest here. We're going to create some pressure in our arms, and we're actually going to start to move them forward very slowly. It's like we're pushing this concrete wall in front of us, because it could be certain images of what we'd like to push away, our work for the day, whatever it is, or it can just be like, no, I'm going to push this wall, but it's very slowly, and we're just breathing normally. We're putting our hands out all the way, allowing our shoulder blades to come forward as well. You might actually get a deep breath.
I was about to do that.
Yeah.
Ah.
And you can slowly put your hands back on your lap and just pause for a second and just allow that to catch up with you of what you just did. You might feel some opening here. Yeah, you might yawn. Any sort of, like, if you swallow, yawn, have a deep breath, anything like that allows you to see or really observe, like, oh, I might feel a little bit different.
Right.
And yeah, you can do that as many times as you want. There's another really great one.
And so that one is when you feel overwhelmed, right? Like you're trying to create space or distance between you and that thing. I felt like this big wave of relief. And then I felt a lot of tingling sort of in the chest area, like a lot of opening up.
Yeah. It can be any sort of feeling. It could be anger. You want to push that anger away. It could just be you have too much going on in your life right now. I need a second.
Okay.
Another one that's really great before bed, you can lie on your back. Your knees are towards your ceiling, so your feet are planted on your bed, on the ground, or on your bed flat. And then you have your fingers laced and they're behind your skull here. So you're supporting your skull. Everything's flat except for your knees. And then you're actually looking up at the ceiling. So your nose is pointed straight up the whole time. And you actually look with your eyes to the right. And you hold it there for like 30 seconds at least. You can hold it there for 60 seconds. And it's really supposed to stimulate the vagus nerve. So again, you can look forward to a deep breath, a yawn, a swallow, any sort of observation. It's actually quite hard when you're sitting, so understandable you might not feel anything. But bringing your eyes back to center and then doing the other side, you might actually experience the yawn once you come back into a seated position. But that is a really great way to kind of calm down before you go to sleep as well.
I love that. I'm definitely going to try that this evening. Then I'm going to message you and I'm going to tell you how it went.
Yes, please do. Yeah, I've been doing that frequently.
So good. So good. So this one, when would I want to use this one?
I would honestly say when you wake up, because I feel like sometimes when people wake up, it's like, oh, it's a jolt. Like, I got to go. I got to get ready for work.
Right.
So if you just want to take a second and be like, everything's going to get done today, and just have like 3 minutes before you actually get out of bed, as well as before you go to sleep that evening. Those are great times.
So good. So good. I've loved this conversation so much, Falyn. I love your energy. I want to be more around, just grounded, just peaceful, more in the silence of things type energy. And I just thank you so much for allowing me to be in that space today. It was so wonderful. So as we conclude today, is there anything else that you felt like you wanted to share that you didn't have a chance to yet?
I think I want to just really allude to the complex system that we are. We can't just address the emotional body and forget about the physical body, and vice versa. I think it's just such an integrative approach, and to know deep down that you have like something that you want to shift, like something's not feeling right, like, and you don't have the tools, that go out and reach out to somebody that may have experienced something similar to you, or so it's just about like how we can heal together and like continue to rise together in this collective consciousness. I think it's really courageous of people to ask for help.
So good. I love that. Couldn't agree more. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you and maybe connect with you, where could they go to do that?
Two places. Email would be great. It's discover@falynmorningstar.com, or Instagram is another great place at Falyn Hunter Morningstar.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Falyn. I loved talking with you today.
Same here. Thank you so much, Sherry.